Hi, Joyce Stick here, the Healing Jedi Master, empowering the force within you. Oh, yes, you are the people I need to connect with today. I just finished the second in the series, Discovering You series, which was Judgment Sucks, Failure, Fear, Forgiveness, the 3Fs. And there was a question that came up during the webinar yesterday, and I promised to answer it. And I thought the best way to do that was on Facebook, which I discussed with the group because it was going to take a little bit of time. So there's going to be a little bit of time in this video today because I'm really addressing this to the people that were there yesterday. It might not make sense to anybody else because you're kind of joining in mid-session, but I really do need to answer the question. And what came up when we're talking about these 3 Fs, okay, this failure, fear, and forgiveness, it really relates, and how it related to the 3 Fs that it kind of really loves to jump into, which is flight, fight, and freeze. And the question that came up after doing some work was that how does this relate to resentment and having vengeful thoughts? And I really thanked the person for asking that question. It's a pretty guts question to ask, too. And it's about, where does resentment come from? Where does resentment really come from? What is that? Resentment, we could say, you could say, well, it's failure, that I really resent that they did this and I didn't. And you could say, well, I need to forgive myself. Yeah, all those play in, but I'm going to tell you from a perspective, again, and there's many reasons why we have resentment, but normally to me it's fear-based. It's about a fear of loss. I post a lot of things from Yoda sometimes. Hey, I am the Jedi Master, right? He's my teacher. But the quote from Yoda is about about loss. The idea of loss, is the first step into the dark side. Yeah, right. If we look at that quote of Yoda's quote, it's the first step into the dark side. What does that mean? Is it comes from resentment, and it's a fear of loss. And so we could call it all these other things. Our mind will take it many other places, but we are so afraid of losing something, and it's usually very, very close to us. It's sometimes very close to our hearts, and it's that loss that happens. And our resentment comes into what I could have had, what I should have been, how come they have it and I don't. It's a fear of loss and you don't have something. It also relates to that lack. To me is a fear of loss. What do you feel like you're losing or lost or don't have, instead of looking at the abundance piece? And so if we look at that going to the dark side would be those vengeful thoughts, the want and desire to get even, to get back, to get that back, because it's presumed that you lost something. So if you're going into, so where can you go from there? It depends on the human being. If you're going to go into the flight response of that, you're going to, this is where we go internally. This is why, resentment is so painful, to go to that vengeful point. Because if you go into the flight part of that, you go internal. And this is where you're constantly internally. You'll go deeper, you become the cynic. You become sarcastic. You become, life sucks. And everybody's going to take everything for you. Look at my face. That's the physical face you start getting. That is the physical cramping you're getting. Resentment goes right in here into by the way, right into this upper part of your body. So if you ever get a lot of pain up there, it could be resentment. And resentment is an interesting thing to work with, because we don't really want to admit that we do resent something. We do resent something happening to us, because it doesn't sound pretty. It really sounds extremely negative, like I resent that. To even say that, most people can't even admit that they resent something. And guess where you shove it? I'm going to tell you where. It's in here. It's in here. It's right around the top of that scapula. We love those muscles in there. I can go into really heavy places of where you do that. That's not what this is about. But resentment going to to flight, normally you fly inside yourself. I'm not saying that cancer is resentment, but cancer eats away. Cancer eats away. You're eating away at yourself. And it's usually, remember, resentment, if we really sit and we can look at it and go, what am I resenting? It's coming from this fire underneath, that unconscious fire of fear. Fear of loss. You lost something. And usually you lost something very dear to you. And then you never want that to happen again. Okay? So especially if this happened to you when you were really, really young, that you just know you have these feelings, but you don't know where they come from. And once you start feeling that again, that's what I would call a trigger. If you start feeling that again, you will build up whatever walls you built up or whatever, or you go wherever you go to. If you go to flight, you're going to go internal. And that is going to start eating away at you. Physically, eventually. Emotionally it does. Mentally it does. It affects your relationships. It affects your whole life. It affects the filter that you filter life in every event that happens to you. It's like, why would I even want that? Because I wound up losing it and I can't deal with loss. Just a thought. That's just one thought. This is you're going to do a retreat with me for months, okay, or an immersion. This is work, okay? This is just a piece, like the tip of the iceberg. Now, when we go into vengeful thought, that would be fight. Resentment, that fear of loss, or comes out and fight. That's my fight instinct. Is I want to take some action. Fight is taking action. And taking action is vengeful, right? You think about, I planned some revenge, right? I want to see something happen to him. A lot of you can't even go into the forgiveness piece. And when I go in there like, I forgave him, I do this, but let's be honest. If we're really honest, you go, yeah, but you want that. You just want to see it take place. That's that vengefulness. That's taking action. That's the fight. And if you're someone who usually goes into fight, that's what it looks like. Fight comes up. We would talked about during the thing, we talked about several other emotions that come up. This is how it looks like if you flight it. This is how it looks like if you fight it. And if you freeze, you don't do anything. You don't do anything. You stop feeling anything. You stop thinking anything. This is like, even to say like, I don't care can sometimes come into the fight. Like, I don't care. Like that's a different reaction than going and say like, I don't care about anybody anymore. Notice the difference there versus like, I don't feel anything. I don't want to do anything. Nothing really excites me anymore. Some of you might see that as depression. There's clinical depression, which is caused by chemicals and things like that. But there's actually depression that's just caused by freezing. So I hope this answers the question that you brought up the other day. And for some of you, if it brought up some questions like, wow, what went down? Yes, it was like a lot. But also taking it to the next level is to free that up. So this is just talking to the consciousness. This is not talking to the where we went with it with the next 3 F's. Okay. So, So if you're interested in more, please, you didn't miss it. It's free. And you didn't have to miss anything. Register for the 3rd one. Okay. You go to joystick.com. And that just reminded me I need to put it back on my website, the new one. But it's joystick.com/free series with the number 3, because we're on number 3. And you could get the recordings for all the others if you wanted, or the recordings for that one, because it was pretty heavy. It was a pretty heavy day, but it also has a clearing in it. So if you are, if you're in this spot where you are frozen, I have a lot of people that talk to me like, Joyce, I'm just stuck. You might be in the freeze from one of these feelings of failure, fear, or need for forgiveness, usually to yourself first. So if you need a little bit more insight, feel free to go to that, to get the other recording. All right. Or make a comment down there. And make a comment to Joyce, I really need to talk to you about this. And I have many ways that you could reach me. Okay. All right. So again, thank you. Thanks to everybody who was there the other day, and it was a great question. And yeah, you could see how you can spend a lot of time on all of these. They're pretty heavy subjects. So thank you, and great question. Keep asking questions. I love answering them. So feel free to ask your question here. Okay. Thanks.